morning. Welcome to Rising. We have another superb show for you today. Lee Fong will be joining us later to break down the tax loopholes that are apparently allowing former President Barack Obama to avoid paying capital gains. That's very interesting. Then we'll also discuss new updates in the Bud Light Dylan Mulvaney controversy, a favorite subject of Brianna's, I know. And we'll also get into some new polling. Actually, we're doing that right now. Brianna, I think you're up.
Yeah, thank you for that introduction, Robbie. Well, a new Economist YouGov poll finds that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has a higher favorability rating than many of the other 2024 presidential candidates, including President Biden and former President Trump. More polling from Quinnipiac shows President Biden ahead of the primary pack with 70% of Democratic voters supporting him. RFK Jr. earned 17% and Marianne Williamson earned 8%.
Meanwhile, podcaster Joe Rogan broke down what the Democratic Party establishment stands to lose in case Kennedy does become president.
They have like a coalition. They know what they're doing. They want to keep things exactly as they are now. They want to keep control of what they are now, and especially the administration that's in currently. If some new person comes in, all their jobs are at stake.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody goes. Right. Some new guy, if RFK Jr. becomes the president, all those people working for Biden are gone. Right? They know that. They're going to do their best to use all of their resources, all their connections with media. They're going to do their best to discredit him with hit pieces. And maybe they even believe the things that are in those hit pieces. But at the end of the day, the only thing that changes it is if the media realizes that guy's going to win. And if that guy's going to win, you're going to have to deal with a whole new group of people once they get in there. And so now it's time to play ball with the new people.
Start kissing ass.
Now it's time to play ball with the new people.
Yeah,
but that they're trying to stop that from happening.
So I do think that he has a point about how much continuity there is between the establishment Democrat administrations and the staff that they all deploy. Kamala Harris's sister was Hillary Clinton's chief of staff. And there is an incentive for a lot of these people as they get circulated and passed around. Obviously, Joe Biden is the VP. Obviously, there's all this continuity from the Obama era that adds a layer to the protectionism that already exists within the incumbency, right? There are people whose jobs are relying on the fact of Joe Biden continuing to be in office. Where there's still, I think, an open question is how much RFK Jr. as a Kennedy is so divorced from that world. I believe one of his children or niece or something actually works in the Biden administration. It's something that a couple of conservatives I've seen criticize him for in the past. But most people, it's really interesting the treatment that he's getting from the media. There's people on the kind of Bernie left, far left, who are very interested in him as an insurgent outsider candidate. There are other kind of independent, more right-leaning voters that are interested in him. And that interest seems to be absolving him of his Democratic priors. He says things when you listen to him in interviews about being a Kennedy and being a Democrat. He said he originally bought into Russiagate until very recently because of how much he just hated Donald Trump viscerally. And it's interesting that doesn't seem to be affecting his perception with some of the unorthodox groups, some more the right-leaning groups, who normally would cringe at those kind of statements.
I think it's important as we discuss his, outsider status, we should keep in mind that he is a scion of like one of the most famous political dynasties of the previous century. Now he is himself a gadfly within that tradition, and more so in the last couple years, given his heterodox opinions on vaccines and Ukraine and some other issues. I do, all due respect to Joe Rogan, think Joe Rogan's great. I take a little bit of, I feel a little bit differently than he does, I guess, about like what the fallout would be for Kennedy taking over. I mean, like Trump, an outsider coming in and winning. So there would be some people would just see the writing on the wall and they'd say, oh, well, you won, and they would join up just like they did in the case of Trump. Some people would like exit the party or the coalition and join the media's condemnation or something. But anyway, but there's tremendous political turnover whenever certainly when a new party inherits the White House, even kind of when a new person inherits the White House, there's some turnover. And then also there's a tremendous number of government employees where there's not turnover at all, regardless of how dramatic the change in power, because these are federal employees who are the non-political people. I mean, we're talking now about how Trump totally failed, did not at all wrestle the what he calls the deep state, the national law enforcement, the foreign policy establishment, the blob. That we saw as Trump gave way to Biden, enormous continuity in the policies of our health advisors, for instance. There's a tremendous aspect of government that will say, no, we're proceeding with business as usual, even if the most insurgent, anti-establishment, outsider candidate took over. It's the task of that person. The problem with outsiders is that they don't, because they're outsiders and they don't understand the system, even though they want to take it down and they want to clean house and they want to get rid of some of those people, which I absolutely support them doing, they don't have the technical knowledge of how Washington works in order to do that. The people who do have the technical knowledge have no interest in shutting it down.
Yeah,
that was a bit of
a problem in Bernie world as well, just in terms of staffing during the campaign, that some of the people with the most expertise find his politics to be so antithetical to their own, that it is harder to just staff on a basic level. Also, even if you liked Bernie, there's this concern that you'll never be able to work in this town again if you fly in the face of the establishment, hiring system. If you ever go against your former boss in that sort of a way, voting for a leftist, working for a leftist, it seems a real betrayal. But I want to ask you what you think about some of those polling numbers. Are you surprised at all by RFK's favorability in light of how the mainstream media has been going in on him since before his announcement?
I think this goes to show you that people do not agree that the mainstream media is speaking for, again, affluent, younger, college-educated, liberal, Democratic, Trump-hating people who have made their whole personality supporting, Ukraine flags in your bio and get jabbed kind of thing. Something that RFK very much has spoken against. Both, is not on brand for those two trends, very notably. And the fact that that's not hurting him more shows you how kind of false the mainstream media's manufactured consensus is.
Yes.
Right?
Look, we talk about ratings a lot when we're talking about MSNBC and CNN, and we do it in a comparative way. But the point, the kind of headline is most Americans aren't watching any of these news shows with any kind of regularity. And so what they're getting, what they know of RFK Jr. is coming through some other source. RFK Jr. said recently in an interview, that he sees podcasts as a vehicle for him to boost his campaign the same way that television as a novel medium in the 1960s boosted his uncle, and how Twitter in some ways helped Trump in 2016, and he was able to use it to an effect that no presidential candidate had really tried to use it before. And it seems like that might be working. I don't know if it's because he's got this more direct access through podcasts, which also, because of their longer form, tend to allow for more substantive issues. They allow for a evolution of your thought and some feelings over the course of a discussion. We talked about that interview he had with Glenn Greenwald yesterday, where by the end of the back and forth about Israel-Palestine, he seemed sort of open to the idea that maybe he needed to revise his opinions on that. And that might be what is causing there to be so much positivity for RFK Jr., despite the fact that every time you turn on cable media, it's someone talking about his family doesn't even support him, he's the anti-vaxxer, and all of the rhetoric that we are used to hearing now.
Mastery of the newest kind of up-and-coming communications forum has been key for, ironically, for Kennedy, but for so many presidential candidates. Barack Obama's success, Facebook, a lot of it due to Facebook, the community group, you could groups of people supporting Obama. Actually, the Facebook co-founder Chris Hughes left Facebook to join the Obama campaign to do all sorts of colluding kind of behavior that if a Republican had done it, or in the context of 10 years after, would be seen as like election crime or something, make everyone infuriated. But back then, because when it was Obama doing it, oh, that's cool. Look at how he expertly manipulated Facebook, and just a different time.
It's a different time indeed.
Well, over on the other side of the aisle, the Republican primary continues to grow more crowded. The Republican mayor of Miami, Francis Suarez, has tossed his hat into the race, formally announcing his campaign yesterday. A lot of candidates are splitting that non-Trump vote, which to me sounds like 2016 all over again. Again, I've said this before. Every person who gets in is just making it more likely that Trump will be the nominee.
I think that can be true, but of course we saw the counterexample in 2020 where you can stay in the race at a crowded field, the way the Democratic field was, as long as you're responsive when Barack Obama picks up the phone and tells you to drop out and coalesce behind the leading candidate. So, I mean, if Republicans have learned how to rig an election from the Democrats in that sort of way, then there's no real danger here in using the primary as an opportunity to see who really does have the most stamina. Will the cream rise to the crop? Who can serve a role and perhaps dinging the front runner, even if it hurts themselves, but in a way that, you know, clears the field for the rest of the
I will
candidates.
say all this, the indictment, all of this happening, I think it makes it so much more likely that it's going to be Trump.
You think it's going to make it more likely?
I do. I don't think it's going to make it more likely to win the general election, but he is getting so much attention again. Like the news cycle for the past week, it feels like this could be 2019 or 2018 or 2017 again, because it's all Trump all the time. And the issue, it's just free engagement.
Yeah.
Like if you think of it in a social media attention economy, it's so much attention for Trump, and that's the important thing. And now even for DeSantis to like overcome that with his, right, with the, you know, the anti-woke policies he's doing, it feels like it's not going to overcome the gravitational pull of Trump, given all the attention and the spotlight he has because of the news cycle, even a very negative and unfavorable news cycle.
The rainbow displays in Target just don't seem that interesting when you have an indicted, twice indicted former president.
Yeah, well, we'll see. More Rising right after this.